The anger and the rage that you feel after betrayal is, I don't know if there's anything to compare it to. Maybe if somebody, hurts your child, that I felt that too. So that's pretty pure as well. But the anger for so long was there that, I mean, every time I looked at him, it was just anger and almost hatred. And there was hatred in it because you love them so much. And how could they do this to you? How in the world could they do this? And you just can't understand how they could do it. And it's just anger. And how are you ever going to get over that? You want to, because you built a life together, and especially if you have children. I have 4 children, but we have 3 children together. And so the desire for it to work out was there, but it was just, how do you get over that anger? How do you get over not every time you look at them, just resenting them and hating them for hurting you so deeply? And it's not an easy thing to do for sure. And any kind of negative thought, they just love to just hang on there. But what I really had to do is start asking myself questions like, what led him there? And a huge part of that was learning about attachment styles. That was one huge thing that I think aided in saving our marriage, was learning about our attachment styles, just because, and this is true, a lot of dismissive avoidants are attracted to an anxious attachment style, which is what I was. And I was kind of in a mix of an anxious and a detached attachment style. So having that mix and learning that dynamic, which is something that we will be going through in this group that I have created, which is just a safe place for you to tell your story if you want to, or just ask the questions from somebody who has been through it. It was just over 8 years ago today that I found out about the betrayal. And it does, get to my nervous system a little bit when I talk about this still, because it's still my life, because I'm still with him. And yet where I can detach from it, and that's what it is letting it go and all of that, which was, again, that's what we're walking through, is learning how to let things go, learning how to let the anger go. But it was also like asking yourself, not just how could he do this to me, but what led him to this? And realizing that he has his own childhood trauma and his own things that he has gone through in his life before I ever met him, that we didn't openly discuss, and that I didn't even really know about or consider, because the only thing that I could see was my anger and my hatred for what he had done, and just that hurt. And to live in that hurt, I lived in it for a long time. And once again, I do say it all started, our healing process started with me healing myself and remembering who I am and all of that. And that was, being able to look outside of myself and look at his perspective and all of those things. And I'm guessing a lot of people in this group are going to be people that have that anxious attachment style and who love deeply and get hurt deeply. So this was such a deep hurt for me. And because I'm so emotionally deep, and he's not, because and most dismissives are not emotionally deep because of their childhood trauma. They don't even know how to connect with themselves that deeply. So these things that are such a big deal to us, like, he just wanted to say, I'm sorry, and move on. And like, it's just like, you can't just say you're sorry and you move on, which I do now get. Like, anything that I've done wrong, nobody wants to talk about their wrongdoings or their shortcomings and things like that. They just want to say, I'm sorry, I see it, it's not going to happen again, and then they move on. Where that's not me. I need to talk things out, and I need to get deep, and I need to understand them, and all of those things. So that was very difficult, having those different attachment styles, and also realizing that just because he didn't want to talk about it or go in depth about it, didn't mean he didn't care. It just means that he handles things differently than I am, and to ask yourself those questions. But really, what even got me to that point of being able to ask those questions is saying, okay, what led him to make this decision? What was it in his past and his attachment styles that led him to this point? What was he going through at that point in his life to lead him to that, to make that choice? And also taking responsibility for my part in it. A lot of times the innocent party just says, there's no excuse for it. And I agree, it should never get to that point. But the reality is that it does for so many people. And then a lot of people just separate. And again, there is definitely a time when things should not be worked out, when both parties aren't willing to do the work or take responsibility, and that there's not a place for resolvement, and they should separate. I get that for sure. But I think a lot of people just stay in that hurt for so long, stay in that anger for so long, and they cannot get past it. And then every time they look at their spouse, they're looking at them with just hatred and resentment, which is what I did for a long time. And it wasn't an easy road to get past that, but it can be done. And I cannot even tell you, like, for a long time I was stuck there. I did not, we were ready to sign divorce papers, so I did not think that we were ever going to get there. And now every day I wake up in just absolute gratitude and thankfulness that we did do the work, that I started working on myself, and that I had the tough conversations, and I believed in myself not to hide myself anymore, because I was always so scared to even tell my truth. And then for a while it was just anger and questions and resentment and blame and all of that. But remembering to, first of all, we are all connected. We are all a part of Source, and he has his whole past and what brought him to that decision, and what led him to there, and where our connection was. And our stories are all going to be different for something else, but it's not like he in one day consciously chose, hey, I'm going to cheat on her. And I think a lot of times in something like that, it starts off small for him. It was pornography. And just when you have an addiction like that, then, pretty soon this doesn't get satisfied and you just need a little bit more and you start going down that hole. So you have to be consciously aware of that. And because we didn't grow up with conscious learning, that's another huge thing that changed my life, was learning how to live consciously. I, did not ever know anything about, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and how they work together, and working with my nervous system and emotional regulation, or I should say nervous system regulation, and emotional intelligence. I just always let my emotions run the show. And once something hurt me, I was stuck in that hurt for so long, and I was stuck in that anger, and all of that hurt and that anger, when you're feeling that and you keep that inside of you, that is 100% what the universe is going to attract back to you. So it's always like, why wasn't I enough for him? And when I believed I was not enough for him, then that's what's going to get attracted back to you. And it's not just your energy. You have an aura about you. Your energy goes out and the universe is going to reflect that back to you. So that's the energy I'm giving back to him. So why is he going to want to make it work, or why is he going to be willing to put in the work if I am just putting out the energy of anger and resentment and I'm not enough for you? Then of course that's what also he's going to feel for me, and that's what he's going to give back to me, and that's not going to make him want to open up. So that was super hard, finding a softness for him, because I had so much anger for him and so much resentment for him hurting me this way, that now how do I find a softness for him? How do I find compassion for him for doing these things? And how do I find a way to communicate to him and to be able to open up to his story when I'm already so stuck in my own story, in my own perception, in my own hurt? But then I realized that there had to be something there. There had to be some kind of hurt there. There had to be something there that led him to that. I mean, I don't think most people or most men go into marriage saying, oh yeah, I'm going to cheat on my wife. Of course not. That's not what they go into. So there is something that led that to that. And they feel guilt and shame about that. And if you're constantly putting that hatred and that anger toward them, they're just going to feel more shame. And the more shame they feel, then they're going to not want to be around you. So then too, it was like, why don't you want to be around me? You're the one who hurt me. Why don't you want to be around me? And I didn't understand that, because I didn't ask myself those questions. I didn't go deep enough to ask myself and to see his perspective and to talk to him about those things. Instead of just why did you do this to me? How could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And I get it, because those are all very validated feelings. But that is where a lot of us get stuck and we stop. And trust me, I get it. I was stuck there for a while. I really was. And again, that's all validated. And that's even a thing that I have a problem with therapy a little bit. A lot of times people go to therapy and they just go there and vent and want somebody to validate their feelings. Yes, your feelings are always validated, no matter what, because they're true for you. And your truth is, there's always validation in your truth. But to then be able to say, okay, this is my truth and I can express it, but what is his truth? Where is he coming from? And instead of just all the anger toward him and asking the questions why and giving them more shame, because I'm quite certain they feel a lot of shame in what they do. And it's not going to work out if you're constantly just shaming them for what they did. And that doesn't mean that you don't ask questions, and that does not in any way mean that you're not 100% validated in your anger. But what it does mean that is if you stay there, it is going to be super, super hard to get over that. And if you decide to stay together and you keep that anger and that resentment, you don't want to live in anger and resentment for the rest of your life. So then it's also being able to, when you remember who you are and you have that validation in yourself, and yes, you're validated in your feelings, and remembering who you are and know that you're enough, and find the love for yourself and the respect for yourself and the honoring of yourself. And then you're not going at them with anger. You're just going at them with, hey, this is an understanding. I'm not here to shame you. I just want to understand. I have some questions. And then it's not that, because when you go at them with that anger energy and the energy of just hatred, of course they're just going to feel shame, and they might give you quick little answers, and they can't go deep with you, and that's all that they're going to feel. But then when you can say, yeah, you have the anger, but just doing it out of love also for them, instead of just anger, saying, okay, what brought you to this decision? What were you going through in the moment? And it might be very hard for them to open up and talk about it, because they do feel shame. And then you have to also think about, try to reverse the roles. I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes, and where you might not be able to imagine being in that person's shoes or doing those things, but imagine that you did something so awful that hurt your partner so deeply, and they're coming at questions at you about it, where you might be like, no, I don't want to talk about this because I know this hurt you. I don't want to talk about this because this is something I feel shame about. And having patience in that, and realizing that this is hard for them too. Yes, they were the ones that were in the wrong. That does not mean that this is easy for them. And this is where the next steps will be inside of this private group, which is a safe place to be able to talk about all of your emotions, be validated in all of your emotions. If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. You can, go through the work that we're doing. And a great way to start too is a huge part of that was breath work for me. I do have a freebie in my stand store for breath work if you want to start there, because that was, again, you'll hear my whole story, but there was a point in time where we were separated, and I actually had to see him with another woman and be around her. And breath work for me was huge, and that was just being able to breathe through it, breathe through the anger. And the thing is, because our nervous systems so often and our emotions take over our life, and we don't know how to go past that, and we stay stuck in that, just being able to breathe through it and just calm yourself down. And that's, again, join this group, and that's where the next steps are going to be able to be, okay, I'm breathing through this. Now what do I do with it? How do I not stay in that anger? How do I not stay in that resentment? How do I move past this? And that's what I'm here for, because moving past it and doing the work, and it doesn't always have to be a ton of work. With Betrayal, a lot of times there is a lot of work, and it was a lot of work. It's been 8 years for us, and never in my wildest dreams would I ever have imagined how beautiful our marriage would be. Never did I ever think that it could be this beautiful. Like it is heaven on earth, and that's why that's my brand name is Heaven on Earth, because it's not something I believe. This is absolutely truth. It's a knowing for me. It's not me of convincing of anything. It's me living consciously, living in the moment, and taking it in, and just the ecstasy. And when I see him, the joy that he brings me, the joy that our family brings to me. As yesterday was such a beautiful day. It was Veterans Day, so the kids did not have school, so we went to Tokenie Falls. We went to some hot springs, and maybe I'll get into that whole story. That was a wow, that was a day for sure. It was so beautiful though, and just being able to take that out and no longer, just when I see him, I do not see anger, I don't see resentment, I see love, and I get excited and my heart overflows in gratitude. And I'm here to get you there if that's what you want. And if that's not what you want, if you're ready to say goodbye, and then I can walk you through that too, because I did that too. We were separated for a while, and I learned to live on my own and all of that. But I'm here for you, and I love you.